everyone, welcome to the session Programming for Problem Solving. Myself Navya, I am an assistant professor from the Department of CSIT in Himalayan Institution of Technology. So in this session we are going to discuss the general form of C program. So here we are going to see general form of C program, like how you are going to write a C program, basic C program, and what are the things you need to ensure and what are the sections you comes under C programming, and how you are going to write a sample C programming, and we are going to see how to execute a sample C program. Coming to this particular general form of C programming, you will have the documentation section is one of the section, the first section, and the linking section, definition section, global declaration section. It is global declaration section, main function, and sub-program section. Here, the link section and the definition section, they both together called as preprocessor section also. Both combinedly we can call it as preprocessor section. When I divided, it was the linking section and this was definition section. Coming to the documentation section. The first section of the C programming, documentation section provides a small description of the program, and here you will write the comments. So, comments are nothing but if you are writing the program, for example, we already discussed in the last class, you are writing a small program if you are defining the variables. Suppose if I define int a. So, here for what I am using a, okay, in order to solve what type of variable it is and why I am using it, so I can know while I am writing the program. When the others see your program, they can't know why you have taken a and where you are going to use this particular a and why what was the importance of this a variable, they cannot know. So in order to know that, if you write a small comments here like this, a is used for something, to do something. So this is how we will use comments. So comments are used for writing some sort of things where you are going to use a small description of the particular statement or particular program. So in C, there are two types of comments. The first one is single line comments and the second one is multiple line comments. If you are writing a comment which will end in a single line, then you can use a single line comments. And single line comments will always start with a 2 forward slashes. Okay. Single line comments will start with 2 forward slashes, and that should end in a single line. It should not forward to the next lines. So this is when you start the comments, the single line comments, you have to use the forward slash. Multiple line comments are the comments which if your comments are more than one line, then you can use the multiple line comments. So multiple line comments will start with star, slash and forward slash and star, and you start writing your comments, and that would end with slash, star and slash. So this is about multiple line comments. So in C programming, the documentation section, the comments are purely optional, but based on your requirement, if I am writing the program and that should be understandable for our core-mates. So when you are designing a software, you should write the programs, right? So whenever I am writing the programs, so that was I am writing some sort of code, the next code has to be written by someone. So they have to understand this code for sure in order to write the next steps. So if you are writing the comments, that would be beneficial to the persons who are writing next to you. So all the comment lines in the C program are just providing the guidelines to understand the program and code, and this is purely optional, that based on your requirement. This is all about documentation section. Coming to the next section, I already said you preprocessor section, which is nothing but pre-processing comments are used to include header files and define constants. So here there are two sections merged in a preprocessor section. The first section is a linking section. The second section is definition section. Linking section, we use hash include. Hash is called as a preprocessor directive. Include, the keyword which is used to, we have to write hash include statement in order to include header file to our program. Now the question is, what is an header file? What is an header file and how you have to use that header file? Is it mandatory to use that in our program? If you say that, very yes, this was a mandatory section. In order to write any program, we have to use linking section for sure. So, what is mean by linking section? I already said you, we are including header file to our program. So, what is a header file? You have to learn. So, here, for example, if there was a student was studying in a college. In order to have some books, he went to the library, right? So similarly, in the library, on what basis the library was divided, the books was divided. So in library, we will have different types of books that was segregated. All the CSE related books will be segregated in the racks separately. And similarly, all ECE related books will be segregated separately, and all the aero department, mechanical, H&S, similarly, and so on. All the department books will be segregated and all CSE related books will be placed at one place. All ECE related books will be placed at one place. All aero department related books will be placed in one place, mechanical and aero and so on, isn't it? If I want to go to the library and if I want to use CSE related books, I will go to the library, I'll go to that particular racks and I can search. As similarly, here we will have different types of subject related books also, isn't it? Here, when it comes to the linking section, there was predefined functions. So in order to write some program, I have to give some input, I have to write few lines of code. In order to take input, if you want to take the output, I have to write some lines of code. So what happens here? So for every inputs, I have to write down the program. For every output, I have to write the program. For every operation, I have to write some lines of code. Instead of writing n number of lines together, what they have done is they have coded together and they have given in one function. So similarly, how the library is there, we will have the C library. In C library, we will have different sections. We will call it as how the departments are there. We will have header files. So how the departments are there? Similarly, here we will have header files. So what does the header file consist of? The header files consist of this was a header file. It is called as standard input output dot header file. So all the input output, in order to take some input, instead of writing n number of lines, we will write into single line statement. Instead of writing 10 lines of code all the time, we will write a single line of code here. So that would be this complete 10 lines of code was already declared here. That will be as it is. We will include this particular header file to our program in order to use this particular function. So header files consist of functions related to all input and output. So these functions, in order to use it as it is in your program, instead of writing 10 lines of code all the time, you will use a single line. Similarly, these all functions will be, all the input output related functions are declared in standard input output.h, whereas math.h consists of all mathematical related functions, and Konya.h all the console input output related issues will be solved in console.h, as well as string.h all the string related functions will be saved in string.h. In order to use these functions, you have to link these header files to your program. By which one you will use? Hash include. By using hash include header file. This is the syntax for linking section. In order to include stdio.h, you have to use hash include stdio.h here. In order to include mathematical related function math.h, you have to use hash include math.h. So that if you include this to your program, all the input output related predefined functions, that would be you can use in your program. Then definition section. Coming to the definition section, in order to declare any constant values, you have to use the definition section. Hash define. Hash is a preprocessor directive. Define is used to define a constant variable. So here you can define like this. This was the syntax. Hash define variable name value semicolon. No semicolon is there. So you have to use, for example, if you want, the pi value will not get changed anywhere, right? So here I can use hash define pi 3.5. So the pi value will be 3.14. That will not be changed throughout the program. The value of pi is 3.14 only. If you are going to change, if you want to change this value, the compiler will throw you the error. So the pre-processing statements are used according to the requirements. If you don't need any header file, there is no need to write hash include statement. But if you don't need any constant, there is no need to write hash define. But without a program, we have to use the linking section for sure in order to take inputs and outputs. Coming to the next section, global declaration section. Global declaration section is used to define the global variables which are common to all the functions after its declaration. And we can use the global declaration to declare functions as well as the variables also. The global declaration is used based on the requirements. So it's an optional section. So if you are declaring int a comma b in the global declaration section, here the ab can be used throughout the program. Coming to the main function section or main section is the starting point of C programming execution. When you are executing the program, first the compiler will check the main function is there or not. If the main function is not there, it won't start execution. It will throw you the error, where is the main function. So this every C program must write the statement. So this statement main specifies the starting point of C programming execution. I already said you. Main is a user defined method which is used to tell that compiler that is the starting point of the program execution. So here int is the data type of a value that is used to retain operating system after completion of the main method execution. So if we don't want to return any value, we can use void. So how you will declare it as int main. This is a syntax. Here what you will do in this main is, first to declare the value, you will have the declaration part is the first one, and in order execution part is a process. What you want to do in this particular program, we will do in the execution part. So here open and close brackets indicates the starting point of main function and the closing point of main function. Okay, which is end of the main and starting of the. In C programming, always it declares only the main function only. It executes only the main function. Whatever you write in the main function, that would be only executed. And coming to the executable statements, executable part, execution part, I already said you in C programming, you will have the execution part. So what consists in the execution part is, you will perform your task like reading data, displaying the results and calculations. All the statements in this section are written in this particular according to your requirements. So main is in mandatory section. The starting point of execution starts with main function only. Coming to the subprogramming section. Subprogram sections, or we can call it as user defined functions. So what is the function? Function is used to perform a specific task when it is called. So set of instructions in a function, how the main function is there. Similarly, you can have the subprograms also. When it is called, it will execute those part of code and it will go back to the main function. So this is a place where we implement the user-defined function. The user-defined function implementation can also perform before the main method. In this case, the user-defined function need not be declared. So directly it can be implemented before the main method. But the starting execution, when the main calls this function only, then the function executes. Okay, so we can define many user-defined functions. You will, in a C program, you can have only one main function. This is important. In a C program, you will have only one main function, but you can have many user-defined functions. You can have many user-defined functions, but main function should be only one. So every user-defined function needs a function call to execute its statements. In main function or in any function, if you call in the main function, if you call the user-defined functions only, then the user-defined functions will execute, or else it won't execute. So this we will learn in the part of functions. We'll have the concept called functions, which is a part of derived data types, which was discussed in the previous session. So this would be discussed in the further sessions. Coming to the general rules for any C programming language. Any C program, while you are writing the programming, you have to follow these rules. The first, every executable statement must end with a semicolon. And second one, every C program must contain one main method. I already said you in just now. So as the main is a starting point of execution, you should have only one main function in each program. And all the system defined words, which is keywords. Keywords must be in a lowercase letter only. I already said you, keywords are the reserved words which has some specific meaning. Keywords cannot be used as user defined names, which is identifiers. You cannot use the keywords as an identifier or variable names. And for every open and close brace, there must be respective close brace. For whenever you open a brace, after completion of these steps, you have to close somewhere. Every variable must be declared before it is used. Before using only, you have to declare a variable with certain data type. So these are some of the general rules of C programming. Coming to the syntaxes. So already I have written the syntaxes, but here we are going. So first is the comments, which is documentation section, and these are optional, generally provide description about the program. And pre-processing commands is optional. When you generally we will use include header files in order to include the header files, which is used in order to use those functions, predefined function. And we will define constant values is constant values. To define some constant values, we which will the value will not be changed anywhere, but here the defining constant variables are purely optional. Next, global declarations. Global declaration section is also purely optional if you want to use the variables which should work entire program. In the entire program, if you want to work this particular variable, you have to declare here. If you can declare the functions also here. Next is the main function. Int main, why we are writing int main means if you want to return after successful execution of all the executable statements, if you return the value 0 to the compiler, you are returning the value to the compiler that I have executed my program successfully. In order to know that, we are going to return a value integer which is 0. So we are writing int. Main is the starting point of execution. Without main function, the compiler throws an error, it won't be executed. And main is a user defined functions. We will write our own statement, but it is a mandatory statement. Our own executable statements we will write. So coming to the declaration part, here whatever the variables you are in the declaration part, you will declare a variables. Whatever you declare the variable, that will be that variables will be used in this particular blocks. And open brace for integers and close brace for this. And executable statements are what operations if you want to do with that particular operation, that all the things will write in a executable statement. Coming to the user defined functions, this is also the purely optional program. If you want to implement, if you want to reuse these statements, if you are writing some 10 lines of code for every time at, for example, in the main function, if I am using some 3 lines of code, after some time I want to use this 3 lines of code again after some time I am using. So if I want to repeat the same statements for n number of times, instead we will write these particular 3 statements in a subprogram section, and we will write this some 3 to 4 lines of code. Instead of writing this 3 lines of code every time, we will write 1 line of code and we will call this function. Whenever you call this function, these lines of code will be executed. So whenever instead of 3 or 4 lines of code, we will write 1 line. That is a function called user defined function. So this is how the syntax as well as the basic structure of a C programming, or you can call it as a general form of a C programming. Coming to the example. In order to have a C program, we will discuss this in a, we will use Dev C++ is a platform or IDE which is used to write C programs. So alternative of Dev C++. Okay. Dave C++ is one of the IDE, and code blocks, Turbo C, as well as you are having online C compilers also. Many C compilers, Eclipse. So these all are the IDEs which is used to write a C program and you can execute it. So we'll have a small C programming, and how you are going to use this particular programming language and how to write a small program, we will see here. First is a documentation section. So I'm writing a program to perform addition of two numbers. Okay, this is documentation section. It won't execute. Okay, next, hash include stdio.h. This is linking section, and if I want to declare hash define a o. Next, this is definition section. If I am declaring int b, this is global declaration section. Next, int main function is a starting point of execution, and here we are declaring int c. So C, what was the difference between A, B and C is B will be accessible in this particular blocks only, whereas C will be accessible in this particular blocks only, whereas B can be used in entire program. Okay, now just I am writing some functions which are printf enter a value. I am taking C equals to A plus B. I am performing the operation here. So here this comes under definition section. This is linking section. This is definition section. This is global declaration section, and this is the main part. Here in the main, this is a declaration part. We are declaring a variable called C. In order to do the addition of two numbers, I want A, B and C. So here I am declaring A value as 4, which is constant value. B value here. So I am taking the B value here. Sorry. So printf statement is used to print the value on the screen. Scanf statement is used to read some value from the keyboard, and these all are the executable statement, which we can call it as executable part in C. Here C equals to A plus B, I am performing operation, I am printing the value. In order to print the value, I already said we will use a format specifiers. In the last session, we have discussed about format specifiers. So in order to print the values here, we are going to use a format specifier. What value we are going to print here is C. You have to write here C. Return 0. So this is how we are going to use. So this is a sample C program. So you have to first you have to go to file and you have to save it first. So I'm performing addition, right? So add.c I'm taking. I have saved. Now you will have the compilation process. In the execute, compile. So here the compiler will compile the program, and if any errors are there, it will throw. So I got no errors. Then you will have the run option. In the execute only, you have to use execute. So see here, when I go with this particular enter a value. So I'm entering some 5. C equals to 9. 5 plus 4. A value is 4. B value is 5. 5 plus 4. I got 9. So this is how we will write a small C program and we will execute it. We will execute it through some IDs. So in today's session, what we have learned is general form of C program. What sections we have consists of? It consists of documentation section, linking section, definition section, global declaration sections, next is main function. In main function, you will have declaration part and execution part. And next is a subprogram section. So simple, by summary, here we will learn what is that. Documentation section is used to have comments. How many types of comments are there? 2. One is single line, one is multiple line comments. Linking section and definition section together we will call it as pre-processor section. Linking section is used to include header files to our program. Why we are linking the header files? In order to use the functions which are already defined in the header files. If you want to use that, we are including that header file to our program. Definition section is used to define keywords. Is used to define constant values. Constant values or constant variables that should not change anywhere in the programs. We are using the definition section. Global declaration section. If you are declaring, you can declare the functions and variables in the global declarations. In order to use these variables entire throughout the program, we are declaring the variables in global declaration section. Main function. Main function is a starting point of execution. Without main function, the compiler won't accept you to execute the program here. And in this, the declaration part, in order to declare the local variables, these variables can be used within this block only. Execution part is nothing but the operations you can perform in the execution part. And subprogram section, you will write some sort of set of statements in the subprogram section that can be used anywhere in the main function. When it is called, it will perform some task. So this is how we have seen in this particular session. Thank you everyone.